right, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining the RV Optimizer in this particular episode. Today we're going to be talking all about lithium batteries. The conversation is going to be all around all the facts and stats and misconceptions. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around the use of lithium batteries. How do you maintain them? What are the main differences between lead acid batteries? And I, by no means, am an expert in this area. I am somebody who has a lot of questions as well. And so we're lucky enough here to get an expert to bring in for this conversation, the Chief Revenue Officer for Battleborn Batteries today. And Wade Seaburg, thanks for joining us in this conversation.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for reaching out and giving us the opportunity.
Yeah, so let's jump into this. I think there's kind of two points of view here that people who are watching may have. And one of those may be, I have an RV, it's got lead acid batteries in it. I always would love to extend my power abilities within our RVs, whether we're boondocking or we just don't want to worry about it and have peace of mind that we can go someplace, sit somewhere for a couple of days and still have our fridge and everything work for us, right? So the one school is, should I convert? The other one is, hey, I have some in my RV already, some lithium batteries. I want to make sure I understand the differences and how to take care of it and get the most out of it. So with that, I guess my first question for you, Wade, would be, what are the main differences that you would kind of summarize between lead acid and lithium batteries?
Yeah, there's a bunch of differences. The main differences are you're going to charge significantly faster, right? You're going to last throughout that charge significantly longer. And when I say significant, you're going to last, you're going to charge 3 to 5 times faster, and you're going to last 2 to 3 times longer in a single charge. You also have significant weight savings, right? So you're going to be able to pack a lot more gear or provisions on for your trip. You're about a third of the weight of your lead acid bank for equal power. And then lastly, and what often gets touted as a negative for lithium, but you're significantly safer, right? The batteries are significantly safer, at least the chemistry that we're using and the protections that we have on our batteries. It allows for a smart battery on there, right? So there's protections that are inherent with the battery that have to be there in order to actually be UL listed, and in order for the RV community, the RVIA, RV Industry Association is what that stands for, in order for them to allow those batteries to go into a OEM build, original equipment manufacturer like Airstream. In order for Airstream to use our batteries or anybody else's lithium batteries, they have to be UL listed, which means they went through a third party that tested them for safety and not so much performance. They don't really test the performance. They leave that up to the company that's going to use the batteries to pick which one performs the best. But the safety side is really important to all of everybody that's in the lithium battery space. Safety's a big concern of ours, and one that we take seriously. And so batteries are significantly safer, and we can kind of go through some of that as it rolls out. But charging significantly faster and more efficiently, and then use throughout that charge is like I said, 2 to 3 times longer. And then you're gonna be about a third of the weight. So that's in most cases that might be a whole nother passenger that you can put onto the vehicle that you weren't able to carry before.
Got it. So one of the folks I was talking to the other day said, I don't know if I'd ever go to lithium because I don't know they're safe. And he said, you read about them catching on fire. Is that true? Is that really the case?
Not so much. We're using stainless steel cylindrical cells inside of our batteries. There's a 100 amp hour battery has about 120 of those cells. Each one of those cells has a burst valve on it, and each one of those cells has air gaps between it and the other cells. So if one of those cells were to have a short circuit event, right, that burst valve will pop, dissipate the energy, not allowing that energy to propagate to any of the neighboring cells. The battery just keeps running, right? And then on top of that, there's what's called a BMS, a battery management system, that we choose to seal inside of the battery. Other battery folks, manufacturers, may place their BMS outside of the battery. We don't like that in the applications we're in today. We see a world where that might be applicable for different applications, but for where we're at today, and the fact that we make our batteries the same shape and size as existing batteries, so we could see those being taken out of a motorhome and put into a different use case that maybe we didn't intend for the batteries to be used in the first place. But we need to make sure that we protect not only the investment that the owner made in the batteries, but also that we protect the user from themselves potentially. So that BMS protects against over voltage, low voltage conditions. It protects against temperature conditions. If you were to put a cable or drop a wrench across the stabs of the terminals of our battery, nothing happens. Whereas a lead acid battery, I'm sure, I don't know if anybody's hooked up their batteries before, but if you drop that screwdriver or that wrench across those terminals, you're going to potentially weld it to those terminals. And so from that aspect, they're significantly safer than a lead acid battery.
Well, that's all really interesting to know, and I love how you explain that. So, you mentioned like the 100 amp hour battery. So I know in my Atlas RV, I have two 100 amp hour batteries. How should I? And I think that's probably standard. A lot of the manufacturers you supply them to probably come with just like that, right? I would guess. Is that the normal configuration?
Yeah, it is. As people are becoming familiar with lithium, they're starting to stretch that. For instance, Airstream started making a range line on a ProMaster chassis recently, and they choose to put one 270 amp hour battery in rather than two of our 100 amp hour batteries. So it kind of just, as I see the adoption changing slightly in the future, but you're correct. For the most part, as a standard offering, most folks are putting two in.
So how should all of us that have the one or two or whatever configuration they have, when you think about amp hours in lithium,
Yeah.
how should we think about that in terms of usage or charging capabilities?
To relate it to your lead acid experiences that you may have had in the past, right? You're going to use, two of our 100 amp hour batteries is really equivalent to about 400 amp hours of lead acid time, right? Because a lead acid battery, if you read the manufacturer's instructions, which not many people do, right? They just put the battery in and away they go. If you start to get to below 50% state of charge on those batteries, you're supposed to hook them up to a charger and start charging them at that time. Most people, and myself included, I had a golf cart, right? I would wait until my golf cart starts like going at a snail's pace before I would hook it up to the charger. Well, at that point, I've already damaged those batteries beyond return to new, correct? So we talked about a little bit about safety that the BMS protects against, but that BMS also protects from damaging the battery, right? The BMS won't allow you to go to that level. It will stop the user from discharging when you get down to 10.5 or so volts, and then it'll signal for you to charge it. But the thing that happens is you don't get that light dimming effect inside your RV to warn you, hey, your batteries are going low, you better hook into a charge. A lot of people probably have lithium power tools or a lithium yard blower or something like that. As your experience with those are, it'll go and go and go until it just stops. The same with our batteries, right? They'll give you everything they have, and they'll treat all the appliances that they're powering with very clean power, a very flat voltage discharge rate, and then they'll stop, and they just won't give any more. So
Interesting. So I don't have that worry of that narrow window like on the lead acid batteries where, there's only a 20-30% difference in range between full and between where you have to start worrying
yeah,
about recharging them. With lithium, you have pretty much the full whatever there's in the capacity of that battery.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always provide a voltage versus capacity legend with our batteries. You're going to charge ours up to 14.4 volts. And when they're sitting between 14.4 and then their resting voltage is right around 13.6, right? So you're going to stay between 13.6 and 13.0 volts for roughly about 70% of the capacity of that battery. And then you'll start to drop when you get below 13 volts, right? When you get to 12.9, you're going to be at about 20% state of charge. And when you get to 12.8, you're at like 17, we say. And then you get to 12.5, which 12.5 for a lead acid battery is a very comfortable voltage, right? You feel like you're doing really well when you're at 12.5 with lead acid. Well, when you're at 12.5 with lithium batteries, you're on the edge of that downhill slope that's really steep. So when you're at 12.5, you're at about 14%, and then 12.0, 9%, and then like I said, 10 volts, you're really at 0%. There's a little bit left in there to keep the BMS awake, but outside of that, that's about all you got. So that really you have to retrain how your brain interprets voltage when you're working with lithium batteries because it's different.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's good to know that difference like that. So, with lead acid, when it got started getting down, and if I'm not at a park or what have you, I need to go plug it in and start
Yeah.
trickle charging the thing at the very least, right? And when you think about that, what what's a good way to think about the impact of solar, like 300
Yeah.
watts of solar coming into a lithium battery? Does it have the same effect? Does it hit that sooner and come up faster? And how does that combination work?
All of your charging sources, whether it's solar, whether it's your alternator or shore power, right? Those are the three primary charging sources in an RV. All of them work significantly better with lithium because it's a much more efficient chemistry, right? So the chemistry itself allows for a high 90% of the energy that's being applied to the battery to go into storage. Whereas with lead acid batteries, you have a lot of resistance, internal resistance inside of a lead acid battery. That's why it warms up a lot more when you're charging it than a lead acid or than a lithium battery, right? Whenever you feel heat, that's energy that you're losing. And so there's resistance to plow through before that solar energy that you're harvesting on the roof actually gets into storage, right? You got to plow through that resistance. Whereas with lithium batteries, if you got 300 watts of solar on the roof and it's a nice sunny day, you're going to recharge those batteries significantly faster than you are, or if you're on a long drive and that alternator is running and it's able to push some voltage back to the batteries, you're going to garner a lot more power inside your batteries than you are with lead acid batteries. So we always recommend about 200 watts of solar per 100 amp hours of battery to really do it efficiently. So if you got 300 watts on top of your Atlas and you got 200 amp hours of battery, that's a really nice system to be able to maintain itself and you know one of the other great things that we kind of glossed over about lead acid versus lithium. I don't know, maybe we'll get to this later, but you don't have to take the batteries out of your RV in the off season, right? So if you're going to park your RV outside or even inside, sometimes people will take them out and put them on a tender. They'll take them down to their basement, whatever. Those are 70-pound batteries that they're having to break their back and lug down there. With our batteries, just simply turn the battery disconnect off, right? First, charge them up, right? Hook them up to shore power, charge them up, then turn the battery disconnect off. That's it, and leave them in place. Just disconnect the loads. You lose 2 to 3% of your capacity per month in lithium batteries. You lose a third of your energy. You lose a third of your power in with lead acid batteries. A third per
Just
month.
sitting there.
Just sitting there, not doing anything. You're going to lose 33%. It staggered me the first time I read some of the studies. But
Well, I will tell you the RV I had before this one had the lithium batteries as well, and that was the biggest difference I saw. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about it. I just shut the main coach power off. I walk away. 30 days later, I come back, I turn it on, and I swear it hasn't changed a bit. And it's like, how cool is that to know
it's
that
awesome.
it really becomes almost maintenance free at that point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they really are maintenance free.
So the one thing I did some research when I first got the other van, and it's like, okay, what are the pros and cons of lithium? And the one thing that did come up is temperature. And
Yep.
the impact temperature has. Now, it's stated temperature at both super hot levels and also freezing levels. Now, when I spoke back to the RV manufacturer, they said we've never had anybody get to the over hot levels. But when you do get below freezing, these batteries don't like to give a charge or take a charge, is my understanding. So, how do you deal with that with what you guys have built in the battle-borne batteries?
Right. So I'll correct one statement there.
Okay.
Discharging the batteries, right? So giving a charge, as you phrased it, right? Using the batteries in freezing climates is 100% okay to do, and our batteries will deliver power in freezing climates all day long, and they will deliver power at a much better rate than what their lead acid counterparts will do. And
Good to
we've
know.
actually at Battleborn we produced a study. And we had a third party, Morton's on the Move, who are active RVers. They actually produced the report for us. Tom Morton is an electrical engineer, and we asked him, hey, people aren't going to take our word for it. Would you do it? And it blew us away about how much better lithium batteries perform in freezing climates. And we constantly, for the last 6 years that I've been trying to get OEMs to use lithium batteries, I've constantly had thrown back at me, yeah, they don't work when it's cold out. They don't work when it's cold out. Well, I don't know how many people have actually used lead acid batteries when it's cold out. They don't work at all. Like they're horrible. And so I said, well, I've used our batteries when it's freezing cold out and they work fine, right? They discharge just fine. So there's no problem using our batteries in freezing temperatures for discharging. Now on the charging side, it's bad for any battery, whether it's lead acid or lithium, to charge it when it's freezing cold, right? You don't want to charge a golf cart. You don't want to charge your batteries when it's freezing. Well, what we do is we don't allow the end user to damage the battery. If you're a lead acid owner, there are no restrictions, right? They're going to let you damage the battery and use it to its limits. We're going to stop you from damaging the battery, and that's what the BMS does. So if inside the battery the temperature falls below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, we're going to disable charging. We're not going to let you charge the battery. Okay? But you can continue to use it. You can discharge and be just fine. Now, the minute that temperature rises above 25 degrees inside the battery, then we'll allow for a charge to come in. That's the way your Atlas is set up. However, I will say the Atlas and all of our OEM users have chosen to put heat inside their battery. So we actually offer a battery. If it has an H at the end of it, it means it has heat inside of it. And there's a little screw terminal on the top of the battery. And we were very intentional with our choice of wording for that screw terminal. It actually says heat enable. So as long as that circuit is closed, that terminal is on, so that way customers can put it to a switch, they can put it to some other device if they wanted to be able to enable the heat. When the heat is enabled, if the temperature falls below 35 degrees Fahrenheit inside of the battery, the heat will come on and it'll warm the battery up to 45 degrees and then it'll turn off. And that's the dead band that it sits there and oscillates in, right? 35 to 45. Always keeping it well above 25 degrees, which is the internal cutoff for charging. So that way the customers will always, if they're plugged into shore power or they've got solar on their roof, If they keep that heat on, that battery will always be able to charge no matter what. And the heat's not going to come on if it's over, 35 degrees inside of the battery, so you're not going to be constantly warming the battery. Reason we did it that way and chose to make that heat switchable was we did not want customers to put their coaches into cold storage and be constantly warming their battery and depleting the energy inside of it. That way they could take the whole thing offline, just turn the heat switch off, turn the battery disconnect off, put your rig into storage.
Well, you just answered like a ton of questions or issues that I had just in those last few minutes. So another question I have for you there is, how much? So if I was boondocking and it is in that freezing up and down temperature range you're referring
Yep.
to, how much charge is it taken from the battery to run the
Sure.
heater to keep that going?
Yep. You're going to use between 1.5 and 2 amps while the heat's turned on,
Oh,
right?
so,
In
so
that
not a lot.
35. Yeah. And we've done a whole bunch of tests on this to figure out what that duty cycle is like how often is the heat actually going to come on. And in a 24-hour span, it's about 30% is what that at 0 degrees, right? At 0 degrees ambient, you're going to run about 30% duty cycle. So that of a 24-hour day, that heat's going to be on for about 8 hours, right? And that's whenever it's, as long as it's 0 degrees outside. The warmer it is outside, the less, you're going to use the heat. It's you know, it was always interesting when the manufacturers would throw the whole cold temperature thing at us. I'm like, this was never a concern with lead acid batteries. I never heard this brought up, and then we started to dig in, and they actually perform really poorly in freezing climates, and it was eye opening to some manufacturers when we provided the data. So
Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation because when I talked at the beginning about misconceptions, you just blew a couple of those out of the water right there because
yeah,
the manufacturers of the RVs are telling us the wrong stuff.
yep,
They really are because
I
they're
know,
the ones who told me, and they showed me where the main cutoff valve to the battery is. It said when it get below temperatures, you can't give or get charges to that battery. You got to go turn that main power source off to the battery. And you're telling me, no, it will manage itself. It'll still charge other things. It's just not going to get charged until it
yep.
comes back up into that
You can
range,
still
which
use your
is
coffee pot. You can still run the lights in your coach, and all the 12-volt sources are all gonna our appliances are all gonna work just fine, right? You're just you're not able to charge the battery.
yeah.
So
And then the other thing you just helped me with, because that was a question I had that, in mine, it's got, I think, a little key that you have to flip it to
yeah,
say turning the heater on for your batteries. And I was concerned that do I have to quick run back and forth and manage that to different
no,
temperatures outside? What you just said makes perfect sense and says, no, the battery's smart enough to manage that itself. That's awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to create, more maintenance for the owner to have to figure out. I always say if your intention is to use the battery, right? If you're going to be actively using your motorhome, just turn the heat on. It'll only come on when it's called for. If you're going to actively be using the coach. Now, if you're not going to be using it and you're putting it into storage or one of those situations, then charge it up, turn the heat off, turn the battery disconnect off, be done.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. That's great to know. So, my last couple questions for you, Wade, because I know you're a busy guy.
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, these batteries come with what, a 10-year warranty on them? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. So that's 8 years of full replacement, and then the last couple of years there we'll repair the battery for if there's an issue. Yeah, and we didn't we didn't pick 10 years just because it was a nice round number. We're a little bit different than all the other battery manufacturers that are out there in that I use manufacturers a little loosely when I put us all in the same box. We actually build our battery. We fully assemble it in the United States, in Reno, Nevada. We've got about 100 square feet, about 180 employees. We're closing in real close to 200 employees. So we build those batteries in the United States. And what that allows us to do was when we first started the company, we took our first batteries that we ever sold back from the customer. We started with a 3-year warranty because we didn't know how the batteries were going to perform, right? We didn't want to start with 10 years out of the gate. We didn't know, how long they'd last. We took the batteries back, gave them a new set, cut open the cases, and checked the degradation on all the components inside of the battery. We then went to 5 years. We then, about a year and a half later, did the same thing. And then that's when we decided, okay, we have plenty of data, plenty of experience with our components. We can go to 10 years, full replacement after 8, right? And then repair for the last 2. So it wasn't just 10's a nice number. We've got folks, some of our competitors that are now doing 11-year warranties and things like that. I would encourage anybody to read the fine print on a lot of those limited warranties. Our warranty is a limited warranty. It's not a full warranty. I don't know if many of those exist, but you can't go and throw the battery off the top of your RV and say, oh, it broke, right? I mean, so there are
Exactly.
some limitations, but
Well, that's peace of mind if nothing else,
yeah.
because one, since it's kind of new technology to a lot of people, just to have that peace of mind that it's not something you have to access ever, if not
Yep.
unlike a lead acid battery, you don't have to put water in or maintain them in any way. And like in my coach, it's not easy to get to them, and that's probably
No.
one of the reasons why you can kind of not have to worry about it.
Yeah. Well, not only that, the 10-year warranty also helps people because they're also not inexpensive, right? And that's not lost on us. So if you're buying the batteries and it's not part of a motorhome and you're buying them to replace your existing lead acid batteries, they're significantly more expensive on the front end. But you're going to probably replace those lead acid batteries every 2 to 3 years. And so by having that 10-year warranty, it gives folks that peace of mind. It helps them be able to, maybe look at that investment, that number kind of their experience of RVing a little bit differently.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I live in Arizona, and when it's over 100 degrees for a couple of months of the year, that has a big impact on the life of those lead acid batteries.
Yeah, it really does.
And so yeah, it's totally peace of mind for me to not have to worry about that. So man, I can't thank you enough, Wade, to help kind of talk through these things. I'll turn it over to you for last words here on where do you see Battleborn, Dragonfly's future going? How do you see this possibly impacting the RV industry in the near future?
Thanks for that, Jeff. We are very excited for the long range trajectory of Dragonfly Energy. We're launching a couple of new products this year that will really help within the industry as also within the stationary marketplace. We just recently finished the IPO process. We're now traded on the NASDAQ. We have lofty dreams and aspirations, but those are firmly grounded in technology and science that we're developing in Reno, Nevada. And what we're proving in the mobile markets that people can live sustainably off the grid can absolutely be transferred over into the stationary markets. And our goal is to make the cost of using solar and wind power and other renewables the same levelized cost as coal. And you can only do that with a very inexpensive and very high performing storage vessel. And we think lithium iron phosphate is that. We have a whole intellectual property portfolio that we're deploying in the manufacturing process of lithium iron phosphate cells. And our goal is to be building cells here in the United States with lithium that's mined out of the state of Nevada, processed here, and then built into batteries here in the United States to reduce our foreign dependence. And we're really excited about the prospects of that energy transition that's happening. And yeah, look forward to many, many more applications for our batteries. It's interesting. Everybody I talk to that's used lead acid batteries understands when we say, we're going to end your battery anxiety. That
Yeah.
everybody's felt that battery anxiety. Will they last? Like, especially if, the marine market's another great marketplace for us. Our batteries are used in trolling motor applications as well as sailboat and motor and larger yachts and vessels. And anybody that's ever had a boat or an RV has felt that battery anxiety, and we get away from that. So it's fun. It's a fun
Yeah.
market to be in right now.
Well, and you're right. You have to plan for those things because it's not, will it impact me? It's when will it impact me?
Yep.
Right. And, will I have enough power juice to do what I want to do? And some is very simple things. Some are more complex if you're going off the grid for a while. But I know I learned a lot here today, Wade. I can't thank you enough for joining and taking the time to share some of this because I had a little bit of insights into the impact and the usage of these things, but I just gained tenfold by the conversation with you today. So I don't doubt our listeners and viewers did the same. So really want to thank you for joining and giving us these facts around the battery, especially your systems. And how we should think about those in the RV world here. So thank you for joining, and to viewers, we'll look forward to seeing you on the next RV Optimizer program. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for being a customer.
Absolutely.
Talk to you later.
Hey guys, one more thing to ask before you leave, which is click on the links below for great opportunities and deals on two really cool platforms. One, Harvest Host. If you're not familiar with it, great places to stay all around the country for free. And the other one is RV Life, which basically helps you get there and plot out your entire trip. Both of those links come with discounts, so please click on them, check them out, and we will look forward to seeing you on our next episode.